Like,
some secrets are buried in time, but they never stay silent. Every generation has a prophet, someone who burns too bright, too fast. In the 1960s, that figure was known only as the Lizard King. Not everyone remembers his real name, or maybe they choose not to. He sang about freedom, death, and crossing to the other side, as if he had already seen what waited there. But beneath the poetry and rebellion, there was something darker, an energy that felt less like performance and more like invocation. On stage, he didn't sing. He summoned, crowds screamed his name, yet many later admitted they felt a sudden coldness, as if the person before them wasn't entirely human, but something speaking through him. As the Doors ascended, he no longer seemed like an artist, but a vessel. He wrote about visions, serpents, sacrifice, and awakening, and hinted in private notes about a presence that followed him, a presence that fed on creation and demanded devotion. When asked about his inspiration, he answered simply, "I make contact with the spirit world through music." Some dismissed it as theatrics. Others believed he had opened a door that was never meant to be opened. And in July 1971, that door closed. A bathroom in Paris, all still body. No autopsy, no explanation, only silence. And a question that refuses to die. Did his search for truth lead him into something unholy, or did he willingly trade his soul for the vision he chased? And to understand that answer, we have to go back to where it all began. How a quiet boy became a fire no one could contain before the world ever whispered the name. The Lizard King, he was simply James Douglas Morrison, a quiet, book-obsessed boy growing up in Florida. From a young age, Ed devoured philosophy, poetry, and myth. Nietzsche, Blake, Rimbaud, these weren't just authors to him, they were guides. Even as a teenager, he spoke about wanting to merge poetry, performance, and something beyond the ordinary. By the early 1960s, he was studying film at USEA. Friends remembered him as intense and restless, not trying to make art, but trying to awaken something. Everything shifted in the summer of 1965. Living on a rooftop in Venice Beach, nearly broke, Morrison claimed he was visited in dreams by Indian spirits. He said they sang to him in strange voices, and when he woke, lyrics poured out as if they belonged to someone else. Among those early writings were Moonlight Drive and The End, one afternoon on Venice Beach. He crossed paths with Ray Manzarek. When Morrison quietly sang the lines, he had written, "Ray felt something immediate, a force, a spark, a vision." That moment gave birth to The Doors, a band built on the idea of opening the doors of perception. From the beginning, The Doors sounded like no one else. Hypnotic music, poetry disguised as lyrics, and at the center, Morrison moving as if he were channeling something unseen. His performances blurred the line between singing and summoning. He spoke of fire, rebirth, awakening, and audiences felt he was pulling them deeper than they intended to go. Success came quickly. Songs seemed to flow through him rather than from him. His voice deepened, more resonant, more commanding. Those who saw him live said he felt not of this world. By 1967, The Doors had erupted into fame. Their debut album made Morrison the face of a generation, Break On Through, Light My Fire, and The End became anthems of rebellion and spiritual searching. At this point, he wasn't just performing, he was consuming the room, and the room consumed him back. But glory never lasts without a cost. And in the shadows, something else was beginning to rise. As the world embraced the Doors, Morrison's presence only grew more intense. Crowds claimed the atmosphere changed the moment he stepped on stage, as if something unseen entered the room with him. His movements became unpredictable, almost trance-like. His voice carried a force that felt bigger than the music itself. Reporters called it charisma, fans called it otherworldly. Morrison began speaking more openly about his visions. He said melodies came to him before he even touched the stage. Like a whisper rising through the floor, he insisted the music didn't come from him. He was merely the channel. This shift became even clearer with the release of Strange Days, an album layered with eerie sounds, reverse tapes, and cryptic lyrics. People wondered how a band so young could create something that felt so prophetic, so unsettling, so far beyond ordinary psychedelic rock. By the late 1960s, Morrison was no longer just a singer. He was a symbol of rebellion, of spiritual hunger, of danger wrapped in leather and fire. But fame cuts both ways. As the spotlight intensified, Morrison's inner world darkened. His behavior grew volatile, and the forces he once flirted with now seemed to be tightening their grip. What began as inspiration slowly started to look like influence, and what looked like influence soon started to look like possession. Because every rise casts a shadow, and in the darkness behind Morrison's glory, the first signs of the curse were beginning to appear. When the symbols first appeared, the year 1968 marked the beginning of something unsettling. By this time, fame had pushed Jim Morrison into a strange place adored on stage. But drifting away from himself behind closed doors, he told friends he began seeing symbols in his dreams, Fia, serpents, and doors opening in the desert. Each morning, he said, they came from something ancient trying to speak through me. He wrote them down as if they were messages. His fascination with the number 27, he called it the number of transition and joked he wouldn't live past it. No one took the remark seriously. Soon, the symbols moved from his dreams into his work. His notebooks filled with drawings of snakes, eyes, staircases, and devouring suns. He wore a silver ring engraved with a coiled serpent, his totem, as he called it. Some recognized the design as an old occult sigil tied to guardians of the crossroads. Morrison often talked about crossroads, calling them the place where the old gods still wait. One night in New York, after a show, a journalist asked him what he meant. Morrison paused, then said softly, "You'll hear it too, if you listen long enough." Later, the reporter claimed the air around him turned cold. That same night, the Doors performed Celebration of the Lizard. Morrison stepped on stage in black leather, whispering words not found in the song. Some fans swore they heard him say, "Awake, my ancient friend." Whether it was poetry or invocation, no one could tell. But from that night forward, he no longer looked like a man pushing boundaries. He looked like someone who had already crossed them, and what waited on the other side was about to show itself. When the transformation became impossible to ignore by late 1968, Jim Morrison's shift became visible to everyone around him. During recording sessions for the Soft Parade, he would stand silent for long stretches before the microphone, eyes unfocused, breathing slow. Then, without warning, he slid into low rhythmic chants. Not lyrics, not language, just sounds that felt ceremonial. Engineers said the room temperature dropped whenever he did it. When asked what he was doing, Morrison replied, "Calling the muse." But his notebooks told a different story. The structured poems were gone. In their place, spirals, broken lines, and cryptic phrases like, "I am the door," and the one who knocks. On stage, the changes were even more striking. Some nights, he was magnetic, commanding, electric, almost supernatural. Other nights, he looked distant, as if performing from somewhere outside his own body. He once told a friend he could float above the stage and watch himself move below. The turning point came in March 1969, during a concert in Miami. Morrison stumbled onto the stage, intoxicated, volatile, furious at the audience. He shouted, taunted, tore at his clothes, and ranted about breaking illusions and facing the truth beneath them. Witnesses said his eyes looked empty, as if he wasn't fully present. The aftermath was immediate: headlines, outrage, and arrest warrants. But to those closest to him, the scandal wasn't the real story. And arrest warrants, something that had been growing slowly, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. When the rumors deepened and the shadows followed, after the Miami incident, Jim Morrison retreated further into himself. Public backlash grew, interviews became hostile, and the weight of the trial pressed down on him day after day. But while the world focused on the scandal, those close to Morrison sensed a different shift. Something happening internally, somewhere they couldn't reach. Around this time, strange rumors began to spread. Friends said Morrison had become obsessed with occult writings. He spent nights alone in Laurel Canyon, sitting in the dark, staring into mirrors for long periods. He told one friend he could see the other version of himself staring back. Some claimed he disappeared for days, wandering into the desert outside Los Angeles. When he returned, he spoke about voices in the wind and old spirits watching from the hills. He said, "They're trying to tell me something." His poetry from this period changed drastically. No longer symbolic, it became fragmented and ritualistic, filled with serpents, fire, watchers, and thresholds, pieces of an American prayer, hinted at death, rebirth, and initiation, but personal themes that no longer felt artistic. In the studio, equipment malfunctioned without reason. Lights flickered, microphones picked up faint static, even in complete silence. Ray Manzarek once saw Morrison whispering into a dark corner, as if someone invisible stood there. When Ray asked who he was talking to, Morrison answered, "An old friend." From the outside, everyone saw a rock star unraveling, but to those near him, it felt like he was following something he believed he had awakened and could no longer ignore. When the price finally arrived, by 1972, Jim Morrison was drifting toward exhaustion. The court battles, the media pressure, and his deepening reliance on alcohol drained him, growing heavier each day. It was inside him. He talked more openly about death, and more like preparation. One entry read, "Death is the great initiation." Hoping for escape, he left for Paris with Pamela Courson in early 1971. He told friends he wanted peace, but Paris didn't calm him. Neighbors heard him pacing at night. Pamela said he woke from violent dreams, speaking about rivers, doors, and voices that would not leave him alone. His final writings were sparse and heavy, speaking about rivers, fragments about ancient cities, silent gods. On July 3rd, 1971, Pamela found him lifeless in their bathtub. No autopsy, no investigation, only silence. Within hours, whispers returned, some claiming he had tried to escape a prophecy, others saying the presence he once acknowledged had finally come to collect its price. At 27, had joined the 27 Club, standing alongside monuments of talent who rose too fast and fell even faster. His descent was complete, but the truth behind it remained untouched. And to uncover that truth, we must step into the realm he spent his life reaching for, where revelation and the unholy meet. When the words he left behind refused to stay silent after July 3rd, 1971, Jim Morrison's voice didn't fade. It lingered trapped in the journals he left in Paris and Los Angeles. Researchers found fragments inside those notebooks that felt less like poetry and more like confession. One page held a single line: "I met the serpent face to face. He offered me vision. I offered him song." No one knew when he wrote it. But to those who believed the rumors, the meaning was clear, a quiet admission that Morrison may have crossed a line most people never dare approach. Scholars and occult historians began revisiting the meaning behind the Doors. The band name came from Aldous Huxley's The Doors of Perception, but Morrison's private notes hinted at something deeper. He wrote about doors between the living and the spirits, and voices that guide the chosen through the veil. Another line stood out on its own. "I opened one too far, and something looked back." Fans who attended his final performances said the music felt different. Less like rebellion, more like ritual. The end no longer sounded like a psychedelic poem. It felt like a ceremony of release. Some claimed Morrison whispered extra lines on stage, words about sacrifice, sleep, and the Keeper of Fire across the Doors albums. Listeners began noticing patterns. Serpents, the moon, crossroads, transformation. In many cultures, the crossing between worlds and the price paid for revelation. In Crossroads mythology, one figure always returns. Lucifer, the bringer of light. Paradox, the one who grants vision but strips away peace. So the question began to surface: was Morrison invoking this archetype intentionally, or, like Robert Johnson, did he stumble into a story older than himself? A spiritual bargain repeated across generations. Maybe Morrison didn't invent his crossroads. Maybe he simply found it. And to understand how deep that crossroads went, we must look further back to the moment he believed everything began. When the origin of the myth led back to a single childhood moment, to understand the shadow that followed him, researchers looked back to a memory Morrison repeated throughout his life. A moment he called "the day the spirits entered me." He was only a child when his family drove through New Mexico and passed a violent car accident involving Native Americans. According to Morrison, New Mexico, the spirit leapt into me. He never softened the story, never reinterpreted it. He insisted it happened exactly as he remembered. That moment shaped him. As he grew older, Morrison became fascinated with shamanism, the idea that certain individuals could serve as vessels for forces beyond the physical world. He didn't see himself as a performer. He saw himself as a channel. His stage presence reflected this belief. The chanting channel, the trances, they didn't look theatrical. They looked ritualistic, as if he were opening a pathway inside himself. Every time he stepped into the light, his private journals supported the pattern. In the late 1960s, Morrison wrote about walking with the old ones, crossing the river of the dead, and seeing death not as an ending, but as an initiation. Each poem, each performance, each whispered improvisation felt like another step toward a threshold he believed he was destined to reach. When the myth outlived the man, as the Doors continued to evolve, as an initiation, Fia, the moon, the shadow self. These weren't just poetic images. They were the same symbols he had followed since childhood, echoing through every stage of his life. To many scholars, they formed a pattern: ancient rites, transformation, sacrifice, and the crossing between worlds, his final months in Paris deepened the mystery. The poems he wrote there were quieter but heavier, filled with rivers, forgotten cities, and eyes of gods that cannot see. He walked the cemeteries alone. He retraced the steps of the French poets he admired. He spoke about wanting to begin again, yet admitted he still felt followed. After his death, fans and researchers began reinterpreting his work. Live performances of the end, with whispered lines never captured on the studio version, were seen as clues. Even An American Prayer seemed to read like a prophecy, a spiritual roadmap written in reverse. Some argued Morrison wasn't destroyed. They believed he completed a ritual. He had been circling his entire life. Others said he became trapped. Inside the myth, he created a myth that refused to end when he did. One thing remained undeniable. Jim Morrison didn't just write about crossing to the other side. He lived as if he were already halfway there. And to understand what that crossing meant and what it cost, we must look at everything that came after the myth took shape. Because his story didn't end in Paris, it only changed form. When the legend refused to be buried, the year 1971 marked the moment when Jim Morrison's body was placed beneath Paris soil. His grave at Père Lachaise Cemetery became one of the most visited in the world. Fans traveled from every corner of the globe, leaving letters, candles, poems, offerings to a fallen mystic. They didn't call him Jim Morrison anymore. Poems. The poet, the prophet, the Lizard King. Cemetery staff spoke quietly about the strange atmosphere around the tomb. Birds avoided the branches above it. Visitors felt sudden chills, dizziness, and, on rare occasions, faint music with no source. Some claim they saw a long-haired figure standing near the grave at dusk, unmoving. No photograph ever caught it clearly, but the stories never faded. The grave was vandalized, fenced, repaired, guarded, yet the crowds kept returning. 3 years later, his lover, Pamela Courson, died in California. Her unmarked tomb and Morrison's in Paris became, to many fans, 2 points of the same unfinished ritual, separated by distance but bound by myth. His former bandmates kept his spirit alive. Ray Manzarek famously said, "Jim didn't die, he just got off the bus." Rumors spread that he faked his death, escaping to Africa or vanishing into anonymity. No proof ever surfaced, only whispers drifting across decades. But one truth became impossible to deny: the doors never truly closed. Every new generation discovered his voice, hearing something timeless, something that felt like a summons. And as the years turned into decades, that summons only grew stronger. When Morrison became more than a memory, by the early 1980s, Jim Morrison's influence began to move beyond music. Universities and literature departments started examining his poems not as lyrics, but as legitimate works of modern mysticism. Students analyzed his writings like sacred texts. Professors debated whether Morrison had been a visionary disguised as a rock singer, a man attempting to document an inner journey rather than entertain an audience. When his journals were published, they revealed something deeper: a mind fixated on transformation, death, and the boundary between spirit and flesh. To many readers, these were not the thoughts of a celebrity. They were the reflections of someone searching for metamorphosis. Artists across genres cited him as a profound influence. Patti Smith, Iggy Pop, and countless others described him as a spiritual predecessor, a figure who dared to explore the space between genius and madness, a space most people avoid over time. Morrison shifted from performer to symbol. Posters of him standing bare-chested with outstretched arms resembled religious icons more than rock imagery. His words appeared everywhere: On walls, graffiti, notebooks, tattoos. People repeated his lines not as quotes, but as mantras. In cultural circles, Morrison became shorthand for rebellion, awakening, and the search for meaning in chaos. And in certain spiritual and occult communities, he was viewed as someone who stepped willingly into darkness in pursuit of a deeper truth. The line between the man and the myth blurred. People no longer spoke of Jim Morrison as someone who lived and died. They spoke of him as an idea, a symbol of what happens when someone refuses to look away from the abyss. When the myth became a living legacy, more than 5 decades after his death, Jim Morrison remains unmistakably present. In the digital era, his image spreads across every platform, restored concerts, archival interviews, old studio tapes resurfaced in new clarity. A generation that never saw him alive speaks of him as if he were still walking among us. To them, Morrison is not history. He is an archetype, the eternal rebel, the spiritual wanderer, and the search for meaning in chaos. His words circulate like mantras. People quote him not for nostalgia, but for guidance, archetype, as if he were still walking among us, and the desire to break beyond the visible world. Online communities dedicated to mysticism often reference him during dream discussions, meditations, or creative rituals. Some claim they feel his presence during moments of inspiration, not as a ghost, but as an energy tied to awakening. Modern musicians still trace their style back to him, not as a ghost, but as an energy tied to awakening. Every time a performer mixes poetry with chaos, over time, his story became more than a rise and fall. It became a warning, an invitation, and a mirror for anyone who chases revelation without fear of the cost. It might rest in a quiet Paris cemetery. But the presence he awakened, whatever it was, never went back to sleep. And to understand the price of that awakening, we must step into the final question. Morrison left behind. The cost of touching eternity. Did Jim Morrison truly make a deal with the devil? The question has haunted fans for decades. Did Jim Morrison make a pact with something darker? And if he did, when looking at his life under a single timeline, one moment stands out more than any other: the rooftop summer in Venice Beach. 1965. A broke, unknown film student suddenly began writing lyrics as if they were being dictated to him. Moonlight Drive, the end. Poems and visions arriving in dreams delivered by Indian spirits. As he claimed, this was the moment when his voice deepened almost overnight. His charisma shifted from human to hypnotic. His eyes took on that faraway trance look. Songs came through him faster than he could explain. And Ray Manzarek felt instantly that Morrison was possessed by something. If Morrison did sign a metaphorical contract this summer, was the crossroads. What would he have traded for? Vision, power, immortality through art. He never cared for money or comfort, but he desperately wanted transcendence, a doorway into the infinite. And perhaps in that hunger, he opened more than just the doors of perception. But the signs didn't stop there. His obsession with the number 27, his serpents, fire, and moon symbols, the chanting in the studio, the trances on stage, the other version of himself in mirrors, the whispers about an old friend, the feeling of being followed, the descent in Paris, and finally, the silent completion of a life that looked eerily ritualistic. All of it forms a pattern too strange for coincidence. And yet, this is only one side of the truth. What if Jim Morrison never made a deal at all? But suppose Jim Morrison never signed anything, no crossroads, no contract, no whisper from the dark. Even without a pact, his life remains filled with mysteries. That logic alone cannot untangle. There are questions no skeptic has ever answered. Why did a quiet, unknown film student suddenly transform into one of the most magnetic performers of the century in a matter of weeks? Why did his voice deepen unnaturally fast, shifting from soft-spoken to a thunderous, hypnotic baritone? Why did his dreams at 1965 produce fully formed songs, visions, and poems long before he ever stepped on a stage? Why did crowds consistently describe feeling a cold presence when he performed, a presence that didn't feel like charisma, but like something moving through him? Why did he enter trances that resembled shamanic possession? Why did the symbols in his journals, serpents, fire, thresholds, watchers, align so precisely with ancient initiation rituals he had never been formally taught? Why did he predict his own death years before it happened and fixate on the number 27 as a point of transition? And finally, why did his life arc mirror the mythology of the sacrificial poet so perfectly, as if he were following a script written long before he was born? If there was no deal, then the alternative is even stranger. Jim Morrison may have been living inside a myth older than himself, a pattern he didn't create, but was destined to inhabit. And if that's true, then what happened to him wasn't a curse, but a calling. So did Jim Morrison make a deal with the devil? Maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but either way, the truth reveals the same lesson. Every great vision demands a price. Some people trade comfort, some trade sanity, and a rare few like Morrison trade themselves in pursuit of something larger. He wasn't chasing fame. He was chasing revelation, a doorway into whatever lies beyond ordinary life. And whether that doorway was opened by spirits, by myth, or by his own desire, he walked through it willingly. That choice made him immortal, not because he died young, but because he dared to follow the part of himself. Most people are terrified to face the shadow, the unknown, the truth behind the mask. In the end, Morrison's life wasn't about a contract with the devil. It was about the cost of touching eternity and accepting that some doors, once opened, will never close again. And now the question turns to you. If the dream you wanted most demanded everything you are, would you still take the deal?